Hey guys, Indecisive14 here. My teacher knows me as Jake Brown. Nudge, nudge. Today's video is going to be a project for school. I was assigned to do a report on my choice of A, nuclear household items, B, nuclear power, or C, nuclear usage in medical procedures. I chose nuclear power and the power plants, knowing that I could flex my knowledge of things like Chernobyl or equate my experiences with it. So let's get into it. Now, I'm personally known for my video games. That's what this YouTube channel is centered around. I can't recommend that anyone watch it because it's explicit, but, if you're like an adult or something, that's fine. But if you've played something like Far Cry New Dawn, you know that it's a post-nuclear setting, and there are nuclear power plants present, as shown too. If you played Fortnite recently, they've had a creative rendition of a nuclear power plant, aptly named Steamy Stacks, because it's another fuel that's not really nuclear, but it's it's equal. Now, if you played COD 4 or Modern Warfare Remastered, there's an entire mission related to Chernobyl, where you navigate around Pripyat, and there's little tips and things like that about the radiation and how it's affected the community and whatnot. In Call of Duty Black Ops 2, there's a map called that is based around taking control of a nuclear power plant. And also, in Fallout 4, there's visceral imagery of a post-nuclear world. Some of the photos shown do include nuclear power plants. There are notes found within the game that describe this nuclear power in great detail. First and foremost, the Chernobyl disaster happened on April 26, 1986, when workers at the reactor Unit 4 attempted a badly thought-out experiment. They shut down the reactor's power regulating system and its emergency safety systems, and they removed most of the control rods from the core while letting the reactor continue running at 7% power. These mistakes, followed by others, caused a chain reaction, and at 1:23 a.m. on April 26, the reaction in the core went out of control. A handful of explosions triggered a large fireball and blew off the steel and concrete lid of the reactor. This and the ensuing fire in the reactor core caused the release of large amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere, where it was carried long distances by air currents. A partial meltdown of the core had also occurred. On April 27th, the 30,000-plus residents of Pripyat, Ukraine began to be evacuated. A cover-up was attempted by the Soviets, but on the 28th, Swedish monitoring systems reported abnormally high levels of wind-transported radioactivity and demanded an explanation. The Soviet government admitted that there had been an accident at Chernobyl, therefore setting off an international outcry over the dangers posed by radioactive accidents and pollution. By May 4th, both the heat and radioactivity leaking from the reactor core were being contained, although at very high risk to workers. Later in the year, the highly radioactive reactor core was enclosed in a concrete and steel sarcophagus. This nuclear reaction has released over several times more radioactivity than what was caused by the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. This radioactivity was spread by the wind over Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, and soon reached as far west as France and Italy. Millions of acres of forest and farmland were contaminated, and although many thousands of people were evacuated, hundreds of thousands more remained in contaminated areas. In addition, in subsequent years, many livestock were born deformed and humans were vastly affected. People from countries over were experiencing neurological issues and disorders, even going as far as women reporting higher rates of miscarriages. The Chernobyl disaster brought up criticism of unsafe procedures and design flaws in reactors. It heightened to the building of more such plants. Chernobyl Unit 2 was shut down after a 1991 fire, and Unit 1 stayed online until 1996. Chernobyl Unit 3 continued to operate until the 2000s, when the nuclear station was officially decommissioned. There are people who became known as Liquidators due to the official Soviet definition of participant in liquidation of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident consequences. They were given such a special status that meant that they could receive benefits such as extra health care and payments. Official registries indicate that there are over 600,000 people that were granted this liquidator status. Putting a figure on exactly how many deaths around the world may result from the Chernobyl disaster is almost impossible. But despite the grim outlook of this research, there are some stories of hope, too. There were 3 engineers who volunteered to drain millions of gallons of water from the tanks beneath the burning reactor in the days immediately after the explosion. They waded through highly radioactive water and debris to reach the release valves. These heroic men are mechanical engineer Alexei Ananenko, Senior Event Engineer Valery Baspalov, and Shift Supervisor Boris Baranov. Chernobyl has affected a population of over 600,000 people. The wildlife was deformed or chose to migrate to another hospitable land. However, the wildlife has returned and don't seem to experience many issues in the current day. Another disaster following these nuclear events was Fukushima. Fukushima has affected roughly 573 people in the surrounding area, but was much better contained. It is possible, however, that anywhere from 1 to 1,000 citizens may have underlying illnesses from the incident. This incident was simply a cause of a natural disaster. The natural disaster caused an unexpected issue. An earthquake struck and caused the main power to go out. Backup generators went online, but a following tsunami flooded the backup generators and caused them to go offline as well. This meant that the coolant wasn't treating the reactor cores properly and caused a partial meltdown. A typical nuclear power plant has a generating capacity of approximately 1 gigawatt, which is 1 billion watts of electricity. At this capacity, a power plant that operates about 90% of the time, which is the U.S. industry's average, will generate about 8 terawatt hours of electricity per year. The predominant types of power reactors are pressurized water reactors and boiling water reactors, both of which are categorized as light water reactors because they use ordinary water as a moderator and coolant. Light water reactors make up more than 80% of the world's nuclear reactors. More than 3/4 of the light water reactors are pressurized water reactor. The 3 Mile Island accident occurred in 1979 at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station. That accident was the most serious in the history of American nuclear power plants. The 3 Mile Island power station was named after the island on which it was situated in the Susquehanna River near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. At 4 a.m. on March 28th, an automatically operated valve in Unit 2 reactor mistakenly closed, shutting off the water supply to the main feed water system. This is the system that transfers heat from the water actually circulating in the reactor core. This issue caused the reactor core to shut down automatically, but a series of equipment and instrument malfunctions, mistakes made in the following hours, had led to a serious loss of the water coolant from the reactor core. As a result, the core was partially exposed, and the zirconium covering of its fuel reacted with the surrounding superheated steam and accumulated a bubble of hydrogen gas, some of which escaped the core into the containment vessel of the reactor building. Very little of this and other radioactive gases actually escaped into the atmosphere, however, and they did not constitute a threat to the health of the surrounding population. In the following days, adequate coolant water circulation in the core was restored. The unharmed Unit 1 reactor at 3 Mile Island did not resume operation until 1985. The cleanup of Unit 2 continued until 1990, to which damage to the unit was so severe, roughly 52% of the core had melted down. This caused the reactor to remain unusable.